Just minutes before the wedding, I overheard my future daughter-in-law coldly tell her best friend, "I'll divorce him as soon as the inheritance is in my name." My son had no idea who his wife truly was. I smiled faintly to myself and began planning the trap that would leave her with nothing. The first move was already set. "I'm glad you're here. Stay with me until the end, and tell me from which city you're listening to this story." St. Peter's Church in Charleston seemed to come alive. Voices carried through the air, chatter, laughter, hurried footsteps. The sound of staff arranging tables and chairs echoed across the courtyard. Today was my son Andrew Harris's wedding to Candace Torres, the woman he loved with all his heart. I stood in the middle of it all, checklist in hand, scanning every detail. The white flower wreaths at the church entrance had to be straight. The ribbons on the chairs had to line up perfectly. The service team had to be ready. I wanted everything flawless, not just for Andrew, but for myself too. I had never seen him this happy. And me, a mother who had sacrificed her life for her son, only wished for him a perfect beginning. I circled the courtyard, pausing to breathe in the scent of lilies, trying to stay calm, though unease still tugged at me. Candace was beautiful, poised, always smiling like a beam of light. But there was something in her eyes, in the way she held Andrew's hand, that unsettled me. I told myself I was just being paranoid. Maybe age had made me wary. I shook my head to chase the feeling away and decided to stop by the bridal suite. Candace stood before the mirror in a fitted white gown. Beside her, her best friend Marissa, also her maid of honor, was carefully arranging the long train that brushed the floor. I couldn't hold back a compliment. "You look beautiful. This dress is perfect on you." Candace turned, flashed a radiant smile, and thanked me in her sweet voice. But that smile, looking back, it felt too perfect, like something rehearsed. I suggested she drink some water to stay hydrated, then stepped out to fetch her a bottle of cold water. It was a hot day, and I didn't want my future daughter-in-law fainting at such an important moment. Down the hall, I grabbed a bottle from the prep room. On my way back, I heard giggles drifting from the bridal suite. The door was ajar, just enough for Candace and Marissa's voices to slip out. I was about to knock, but froze when I heard Marissa ask, "Are you sure? She's going to sign, right?" My heart jolted. I stood still, gripping the bottle tightly, straining to hear Candace's voice, cold as ice. "In a few days, she'll hand me the pen. I'll divorce him as soon as the inheritance is in my name. Once it's done, I'll sell all the assets to pay off debts and disappear." My blood seemed to stop flowing. Sell everything. Disappear. I was still reeling when Marissa let out a laugh. "And if she changes her mind?" Candace's sly reply sent a chill through me. "Then I'll come up with an excuse to divorce and move on to someone else. Worst case, I get rid of Andrew. He has no idea." I stood paralyzed behind the door, my mind spinning as though the floor had caved in beneath me. Candace, the woman I once believed was a blessing for my son, was plotting to take everything. Worse, she had the audacity to suggest discarding Andrew, the boy I had loved and protected all my life. I wanted to burst in, scream, demand how she could be so cruel. But my legs were rooted to the ground. Candace went on in a casual tone, as if telling an ordinary story. "It's not the first time. I did it in Dallas, too. It's all about knowing how to move the pieces." Dallas. She had done this before. A sharp pain clenched my chest, as though someone was crushing my heart. Every time Candace had smiled at me, every time she had called me Mom, in that sweet voice, now replayed in my mind as a farce. I had trusted her. I had opened my heart to welcome her into the family, yet she saw us only as prey. Suddenly, footsteps echoed behind me. My heart pounded so hard I thought it would burst. I quickly turned, walked toward the corner of the hall, pretending to focus on my phone. My hands trembled, nearly dropping the bottle. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw a staff member passing by, calm and unconcerned. She only smiled and asked if I needed anything. I shook my head, forcing out a shaky, "No, thank you." I returned to the hall as if I hadn't heard Candace's poisonous words, but inside my head, every phrase replayed like a blade cutting into my heart. How could I stay calm, knowing my future daughter-in-law planned to take everything and even harm my son? The ceremony began. I stood beside my husband, Samuel Harris, in St. Peter's Church. Sunlight streamed through the stained glass, casting a glow on Candace, making her look sweet, almost angelic. She walked arm in arm with Andrew, beaming like dawn itself, her eyes fixed on him as if the world held only the two of them. My heart tightened at the sight. Had I not overheard that conversation, I might have wept with joy for my son. But now, every gesture, every smile from Candace sent shivers through me. She acted too perfectly, like a puppet on invisible strings. I gripped Samuel's hand tighter, hiding the tremor of anger in me. The ceremony carried on solemnly. The priest spoke his blessing, his voice echoing through the old stone walls. When Andrew and Candace exchanged rings, applause filled the church. I clapped too, but my chest felt heavy. Looking at Andrew's happy, unsuspecting face, I wanted to scream, to pull him away from her, but I couldn't, not yet. I needed time and proof to reveal who she truly was. After the ceremony, everyone gathered at the flower-draped entrance for photos. I stood by Samuel, forcing a smile for the cameras, while relatives praised how well everything had turned. Out! A cousin patted my shoulder. "Donna, it was wonderful." I nodded in thanks but kept my eyes fixed on Candace. She stood apart, whispering to a tall, lean man in a gray suit, his hair flecked with silver, his eyes cold. They spoke quickly, then Candace looked my way. I caught a flicker of nerves in her eyes before she masked it with a smile. My chest tightened. Who was that man? What did he have to do with Candace's scheme? Moments later, he approached me. "Good afternoon, Mrs. Donna," he said in a low, courteous voice with a slight smile. I nodded, trying to stay natural, though my mind spun. I'd never seen him before. Maybe a guest from her side, or a friend of Candace's. I wanted to ask, but was called into another group photo. Candace quickly returned, slipping her arm around Andrew's, fussing with his tie for the camera. From a distance, the gesture looked tender, full of love. But I knew it was just an act. On the ride to the Hilton for the reception, Samuel and I sat in the front, while Andrew and Candace were in the back. I heard Candace laugh softly, telling Andrew about the song choice for their first dance. Her voice was sweet, full of energy, but each word sent chills through me. Through the rearview mirror, I saw Candace rest her head on Andrew's shoulder, their fingers intertwined. I wanted to shout that she didn't deserve him, that she was deceiving him. Instead, I stayed silent, squeezing Samuel's hand as he chatted cheerfully with the driver about our own wedding years ago. The reception hall was more grand than I'd imagined. Golden light glowed over tables draped in crisp white cloths, each centerpiece a vase of fragrant lilies. Guests laughed and chatted as they took their seats. I made my rounds, greeting old friends, collecting compliments for the flawless event. "Donna, it was like a dream," a friend said, raising her glass. I smiled, thanked her, but inside I felt heavy. If only they knew what I had. Heard would they still be celebrating. Passing the bar, I spotted Candace with Marissa and Lauren. They were chatting animatedly, but the moment I approached, they fell silent. Candace turned to me with a bright smile. "Mom, the flowers are gorgeous. You must have worked so hard." I nodded, replying briefly, while noticing Marissa and the other woman avoided my eyes. What did they know? Were they part of Candace's plan? I felt like I had stepped into a maze of secrets. The band struck up, and Andrew led Candace to the dance floor for their first dance. I watched, swallowing my pain. They looked like the perfect couple. Candace spun in Andrew's arms, her gown sparkling under the lights. Guests clapped and cheered, but to me it was all performance. I slipped toward the dimmer bar area to steady myself. There, I saw the man in gray again. He stood alone, a glass of wine in hand, watching the dance floor. I started toward him, but he only gave a faint smile, set down his still full glass, and walked away. That gesture chilled me. What was he trying to signal? I returned to the table, sitting beside Arlene, my youngest daughter, sharp and insightful, now in her final year of law school. She leaned close and whispered, "Mom, I've noticed Marissa and that other woman watching you all evening. They don't look comfortable." I nodded without speaking, but another puzzle piece clicked into place. Arlene always noticed what others missed. Maybe she had sensed something too. When the MC announced it was time to cut the cake, I glanced at Candace. She was quickly checking her phone under the table, moving fast as if afraid someone might see. The glow of the screen lit up a phrase, "Only a few days left." My chest tightened again. A few days for what? To get my signature, to sell off my family's assets. Candace put the phone away, clasped Andrew's hand, and stepped onto the stage to cut the cake. She beamed beside my son as cheers filled the room. I watched without joy, only suspicion, pain, and a growing resolve. In silence, I took in every detail since morning: the man in gray, Candace's restless glances, Marissa and her friend's unease, the cryptic message. Everything felt like puzzle pieces falling into place, and I knew I had to uncover the truth. The next morning, the Hilton still hummed with the echoes of the wedding celebration. But for me, everything had shifted. I headed down to the lobby with a stack of papers to review the guest room charges. The scent of morning coffee drifted from the front desk, but my mind couldn't rest. Candace's words from the night before replayed like a lingering nightmare. I reminded myself to stay calm, to find a way to protect Andrew, but every step felt heavy, as though I carried all the pain and doubt on my shoulders. At the front desk, I ran into Marissa, the maid of honor, and Candace's closest friend. She was handing in her room key, her face tired, dark circles under her eyes, none of the joy of someone fresh from a grand wedding. I studied her, searching for any sign of truth. Marissa avoided my gaze, fiddling with the strap of her purse. I approached with a gentle smile. "Marissa, why don't you sit with me for a cup of coffee? Might help you feel better." She looked a little surprised, then reluctantly agreed. We chose a quiet corner where soft morning light streamed through the window. I ordered 2 coffees, trying to keep my tone as natural as possible. "Quite the wedding last night, huh? Must have worn you out," I said, watching her closely. Marissa sipped and answered curtly, "Yes, very beautiful." Her tone was flat, her eyes evasive, as if afraid I'd see through her. I leaned in, lowering my voice. "I noticed a man in a gray suit yesterday. Seemed odd. Do you know him? A friend of Candace's?" Marissa flinched, her hand trembling, coffee rippling in her cup. No, I don't know him, probably a guest from her side. She blurted it out, then stood abruptly. Excuse me, I have to get my things. I smiled and nodded, but deep down I knew she was hiding something. As Marissa left, I glanced toward the lobby doors just in time to see Candace's other friend appear. She wore a pale blue dress, her hair neatly pinned. The moment our eyes met, she turned and hurried out. Too obvious, like she was terrified I might approach. I pretended to take a call and rose, really just to watch. From a corner of the lobby, I saw Marissa head straight to meet the woman outside in the courtyard. Their faces tense, they whispered urgently. I couldn't hear them, but instinct told me they were worried, and the reason was me. I stepped outside, drew in a deep breath. The Charleston air was crisp. The sunlight glittered across the lake, but my heart felt dark. Just then, I saw Arlene, my youngest, speaking with a wedding staffer. She waved me over, her eyes brimming with intent. "Mom, this young man just told me something important," Arlene whispered. The boy, named Paul, looked around nervously before saying, "Last night, while clearing tables, I overheard Candace's friend talking to Marissa. She said, 'I hope this time Candace doesn't ruin everything like she did in Dallas.' They sounded really worried." My heart pounded hard. Dallas. Candace's words from last night echoed again. It's not the first time. I did it in Dallas, too. Had she tricked someone before, taken everything and disappeared? Arlene looked at me, her eyes asking, "Mom, what do you think?" I took her hand, pulled her aside, and whispered, "Sweetheart, I believe Candace is hiding something huge. I need your help." Arlene nodded, her eyes blazing like a soldier heading into battle. She had always been sharp, always seeing what others missed. I felt a little lighter, but fear clung to me. If Candace truly was that dangerous, Andrew would be in danger. That afternoon, our family had lunch at a small restaurant by the lake. The smell of grilled fish mixed with savory sauces filled the air, but I couldn't swallow a bite. Candace sat across from me, pouring wine for Samuel, complimenting my choice of restaurant. "Mom, this place is amazing. The food is delicious." Her sweet smile looked nothing but false to me. Samuel laughed, clapping my shoulder. "See, Donna? We've got a daughter-in-law who knows how to appreciate things." I forced a smile, but inside it felt like needles pricking. Every gesture from Candace now only fueled my suspicions. When dessert was served, I noticed her sneaking a glance at her phone. She unlocked it quickly, read something, then turned the screen away. Andrew asked curiously, "Who's texting you that's making you smile?" Candace immediately replied with honeyed sweetness, "Just an old friend sending congratulations." But I didn't buy it. That smile, the way she hid her phone, it was all too suspicious. I wanted to snatch it from her hands, but held back. I needed patience, more proof. Back at the hotel, walking down the hallway, I ran into that other woman. She smiled and said sweetly, "Good night." But as she passed, I clearly heard her whisper, "You can't stop it." I froze, a chill racing down my spine. What did she know? Was she talking about me or about Candace's plan? I wanted to confront her, but I restrained myself. Acting now would only expose me. I had to endure, no matter how hard it was. That night, when the hotel grew quiet, I called Arlene into my room. I told her everything. Candace and Marissa's conversation, the man in the gray suit, the whispered warning. Arlene listened silently, jotting quick notes in her notebook. "Mom, I'm going to start investigating Candace," she said firmly. "Her finances, her past, anything connected to her. I'll get my friends from law school to help dig." I looked at her, proud yet aching. Arlene was only in her 20s. She should have been enjoying her youth, not dragged into this. "Thank you, sweetheart," I choked out. "All I want is to protect your brother, protect our family." Arlene squeezed my hand, her eyes steady. "Mom, I won't let her hurt Andrew, I promise." I nodded, holding back tears, but fear gnawed at me. Fear that Candace was more than a fraud, that she was a real threat. Fear that I wouldn't be fast enough to save my son. I hugged Arlene and whispered, "Be careful, baby. I can't lose both of you." She nodded, her face resolute, but I knew we were stepping into a battle where the real enemy still hadn't shown their face. 2 days after the wedding, I sat in a small cafe near Arlene's campus, uneasy, like someone standing at the edge of a cliff. The air smelled faintly of roasted coffee, but I could taste nothing. Arlene walked in, holding a thick file, her expression more serious than I'd ever seen. "Mom, I found something," she said, placing the papers on the table, lowering her voice, as if afraid of eavesdroppers. My pulse raced. I sensed what she was about to say could change everything. Arlene opened the file and pointed to the printed lines. "Candace owes over $600,000. She took 3 loans from private finance companies and 2 from individuals. One of them is Vincent, the man in the gray suit at the wedding." I drew a sharp breath, struggling to stay calm. Vincent, with his cold smile and sharp eyes, now had a clear role in Candace's scheme. But Arlene's next words made my blood run cold. "I also found something about Dallas. Candace was about to marry a businessman there, but the wedding was canceled just 3 days before. The groom's family stayed quiet, but rumors said their company lost a fortune. No one proved Candace was involved, but, Mom, doesn't it sound too coincidental?" I flipped through the pages, my hands trembling. One loan was under Candace's mother's name, but the guarantor was Candace herself. The amount was significant, and the deadline loomed near. My voice cracked as I looked at Arlene. "She didn't just fool Andrew. She's done this before, hasn't she?" Arlene nodded, her eyes firm but worried. "I'll keep digging, Mom. I have friends in Dallas who can search further, but I don't think Candace is acting alone." I nodded, my chest heavy. Candace wasn't just ambitious, she was a predator, and my family was her next prey. We left the cafe, and I hugged Arlene tightly before she drove back to school. "Be careful, sweetheart. I don't want you in danger." She smiled, but the tension in her eyes betrayed her. "Don't worry, Mom. I'll find the truth." I watched her car disappear, my heart hollow. I had lived more than 60 years, built this family through hardship, but never had I felt so powerless. That afternoon, I returned home, weighed down by dread. Andrew was in the living room reading the paper. "Where's Candace?" I asked. He glanced up and gave a faint smile. "Out with Marissa, probably shopping." I nodded, but suspicion stirred in me. Marissa always avoiding my eyes. What were they up to? I excused myself, saying I needed groceries for dinner, but really I just needed air, time to think. In the parking lot near the market, I suddenly saw Candace and Marissa standing beside a black SUV. With them was Vincent, the man in the gray suit. He handed Candace a thick white envelope, his eyes darting around. Candace quickly stuffed it into her purse, and the 3 split apart, like criminals avoiding a witness. My heart pounded as I drove away before they spotted me. What was in that envelope? Money, documents, or something worse? I turned onto another street, avoiding them, but I knew I had just witnessed another piece of their scheme. That evening, the family gathered for dinner. Candace was cheerful, laughing as she said, I met an investment guy today. He told me about a very promising opportunity. Her eyes sparkled as if sharing good news. Samuel nodded in approval. That's great, Candace. You're so driven. Andrew really chose well. Andrew smiled proudly, squeezing Candace's hand. I sat there, unable to swallow a bite. Investment opportunity. I knew it was just a cover, another part of her scam. I stayed quiet, pretending to eat, while my mind worked on a plan. The next morning, I woke with the weight of the world pressing on me. Sleep hadn't eased me, it had only sharpened the truth about Candace. Sitting at the breakfast table, clutching a cold cup of coffee, staring out the window, I knew I couldn't wait any longer. I had to act before Candace did. I picked up the phone and called Javier, an old friend in real estate down in Houston. Javier, do you know a man named Vincent? Wears gray suits, lends money? I asked bluntly. Javier was silent a moment, then replied cautiously. Vincent? Oh yes, he's notorious. A loan shark. Collects fast, charges brutal interest. Ruthless. He's been tied to scandals but never caught. Donna, why are you asking about him? I only said I needed to confirm something, thanked him, and hung up. My chest felt heavy. Vincent wasn't just part of Candace's plan, he was far more dangerous. Javier sent me Vincent's number, snapped from a business card. I stared at the digits, my hand shaking. Should I call? Facing him directly could put my family at risk. But the image of Andrew smiling beside Candace blurred with her cold words. If trouble comes, we'll get rid of Andrew. I gripped the phone, drew a deep breath, and dialed. Hello, mister. Vincent, I said when his low voice answered. This is Donna, Andrew's mother. I want to meet you today at the cafe on Main Street, 3 p.m. Will that work? He paused, then replied curtly, Fine, I'll be there. At exactly 3, I walked into the small cafe. The smell of roasted coffee mixed with soft guitar music, but none of it calmed the storm inside me. Vincent arrived on time in a white shirt, carrying a black leather briefcase. He was tall, lean, with graying hair and eyes sharp as knives. We chose a secluded corner, ordered 2 black coffees. I didn't waste words. You're collecting debt from Candace Torres, aren't you? Vincent frowned slightly, then smirked, as if expecting it. I thought you wouldn't care. But yes, she owes me big. The deadline is this weekend. On the wedding day, I made sure she saw me up close, just to rattle her, he added. His words sent a chill down my spine. That moment hadn't been coincidence, it was a move in his own game, and Candace was just a piece. I locked eyes with him. I have a deal for you. I'll make sure you get your money. But you keep the pressure just enough to make her nervous. You do not touch her. Vincent folded his arms, tilting his head. And why would you want that? I kept my tone even, because I need her to trap herself. Once I have proof, I'll settle the rest. Vincent studied me, weighing my credibility, then nodded. Fine, I'll agree, but I don't like waiting. Before leaving, he dropped one more bomb. Did you know I once planned a real estate deal with your husband, Samuel? A big project. But Candace stepped in, offered him a high-interest loan instead. After that, he pulled out of my deal. I guess he never told you. My blood rushed to my face. Samuel, my husband. Candace had gotten to him long before, and I hadn't even known. I clutched Vincent's card with trembling hands, forcing out, "Thank you." Then I left, my mind in chaos. It wasn't just Andrew, Samuel had been tangled in Candace's web too. Back home I found Arlene waiting in the living room. She had come by, but I knew worry had brought her more than anything. I pulled her upstairs, locked the door, and told her everything. The meeting with Vincent, the revelation about Samuel, Arlene's eyes widened. Then she nodded hard. "Mom, she's even more dangerous than we thought. I'll set up recording devices, hidden cameras. If Candace makes a move, we need evidence." I looked at my daughter, pride and sorrow mixing. She was too young to be burdened with this. "Be careful, sweetheart. I don't want you caught in this." Arlene squeezed my hand and smiled. "Mom, I'm your daughter. I won't let her win." That evening I sat in my room, watching the Charleston sky glow orange with sunset, my heart anything but calm. I thought of Samuel, the man who had built the hotel with me through hardship. He could be naive, too trusting, but why hide debts from me? Was there more he wasn't telling? And Andrew still blind with love for Candace, not knowing she was plotting to destroy us all. I buried my face in my hands, feeling powerless. I faced countless challenges, but never had I felt this weak. All I wanted was to protect my family. But each step felt like walking through a minefield. That evening we all sat together in the living room, golden light spilling across the furniture. I sat in my old chair, my hands clasped, forcing my voice to sound casual. Samuel sat opposite with his newspaper, while Andrew and Candace sat hand in hand, Andrew's eyes brimming with love. I drew in a deep breath and said, as if making small talk, "Maybe it's time I take a step back. I'm getting older, and the hotel needs younger hands." "Andrew, what do you think if I hand over part of the work to you?" Candace immediately looked up, her eyes gleaming, her smile wide as if she had just won the lottery. "That's wonderful, Mom. Today you're thinking about our future." Her voice was full of excitement, but I caught the glimmer of greed flashing in her eyes. Andrew simply gave me a gentle smile and nodded. "Thank you, Mom, but take your time. I'm not in a rush." My son was always that way, uninterested in power, only wanting family happiness. I looked at him, my heart aching. If only he knew what his wife was plotting. I pretended to think it over, then added, "Or maybe if I add your wife's name as co-owner, it would be more convenient. Andrew travels for work often, and Candace could help me manage things here. That way, I'd feel more at ease." I glanced at Candace and saw her sit up straight, her smile even brighter. "If you trust me, I'll do my very best," she said, her voice sweet as honey. But I knew it was the hiss of a snake. Samuel nodded, patting my shoulder. "That's a great idea, Donna. Candace is energetic. I'm sure she'll do well." Andrew looked at his wife with pride. I forced a smile, but inside I felt cold. The first trap had been set, and I knew Candace was about to take the bait. Not long after, I received a message from Arlene. She had secretly installed a message backup app when she borrowed Andrew's phone to take wedding photos. Arlene wrote, "Mom, Candace just texted Andrew, telling him to convince you to sign the transfer papers soon. She said this opportunity can't be missed." I read the message and tightened my grip on the phone. Everything was unfolding exactly as I had predicted. Candace couldn't hold back her impatience anymore. Her greed had forced her to reveal her true face. Still, I had to remain calm and let her walk straight into the trap. That night, I used the excuse of going to Houston to visit some friends. I left home, putting Candace in charge of coordinating the hotel staff for 2 days. "Get used to it. I trust you," I said softly. Candace beamed. "I won't let you down." But the way she looked at me sent a shiver through my body. I knew exactly what she was thinking about the file cabinet in my office where I kept the family property documents. The next day, Arlene called with urgency in her voice. "Mom, a hotel employee just told me." Candace sneaked into your office, opened the file cabinet, and took photos of some documents. She thought no one saw, but Rosa from the cleaning team saw everything. My pulse raced hard. Candace had started her move. I told Arlene, keep watching her, but don't let her suspect anything. I want her to believe she's winning. After hanging up, I sat still, feeling the world spinning. The trap had been set, and Candace had bitten. But why did I still feel afraid? Afraid I wouldn't be fast enough, afraid I wouldn't be clever enough. Later that afternoon, I received a message from Vincent. She's already asking me how to transfer assets. Looks like she's ready. I read the words and felt a chill spread through me. Vincent was keeping his promise, applying pressure on Candace, but my mind still echoed with what he had revealed before. Candace had interfered in Samuel's business dealings, dragging him into a loan with crushing interest. Samuel, the man I had loved and trusted for decades, had kept it from me. I wanted to confront him, to ask why, but I knew it wasn't the time. First, I had to focus on Candace. By late afternoon, I returned home, keeping my face calm. On the porch, I saw Candace chatting happily with Marissa like two carefree friends. But the moment she spotted me, Candace immediately changed the subject and turned toward me. "Mom, I think next week we should order passion fruit cake for the hotel conference. The guests will love it." Her radiant smile pretended nothing was wrong. I nodded. "Good idea, you decide." But deep down, I knew she was only trying to distract me. I smiled back, but I didn't take my eyes off her. The bait was taken, and I wasn't going to let her slip away. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the curtains, spreading across the wooden floor of my bedroom. I had just finished making my coffee when I heard a knock at the door. Andrew stood there, his eyes a little red as if he hadn't slept. "Mom, I need to talk to you," he said hesitantly. I invited him in, forcing myself to stay calm, though my mind was restless. "Candace says you should sign the property transfer soon," Andrew said, twisting his hands. "She thinks if her name is added, it'll be easier to attract investors to expand the hotel." I looked at my son, my chest tightening with pain. He still trusted Candace completely, still looked at her with those eyes overflowing with love. I pretended to consider it, then nodded lightly. "I'll think about it, son. This is important. I need to consult a lawyer first." Andrew sighed, clearly disappointed, but didn't argue. "All right, I understand," he said before turning to leave. Watching him walk away, I wanted to call him back, to tell him everything, but I knew it wasn't the time. Without evidence, he would only think I was jealous of his wife. At noon, I stood by the window looking out at the balcony. Andrew and Candace were sitting under the shade of the small olive tree. She rested her head on his shoulder, whispering something. I couldn't hear, but I saw her sweet smile. The sight made my skin crawl. Candace was binding my son little by little, like a spider weaving its web around prey. I clenched my fists, swallowing my rage. I had met many kinds of people, but never anyone as false as this. Candace didn't just want the wealth she wanted, Andrew's trust and love, only to destroy it all. That afternoon, Arlene called urgently. "Mom, I just spoke with Vincent. He said Candace called him this morning and told him she'll have your signature in just a few days. She's very confident." My heart raced. Candace was moving faster than I expected. I told my daughter, my voice shaking, "Be very careful. Set up more recorders in my office and in my room, but make sure no one knows." Arlene's voice was steady. "Don't worry, Mom. I know how." I hung up, sinking into a chair, feeling like the whole world was crushing me. Arlene was young, but stronger than I had realized. I felt proud, but it hurt too. She should have been worrying about exams, about friends, not this. That evening, as I sat in my room, Candace knocked on the door holding a bottle of expensive wine, her smile glowing like a light. "Mom, I'd love to share a glass with you, to celebrate a new beginning for our family." I smiled and invited her in, though deep down all I wanted was to send her away. We sat, poured the wine. I tried to act natural, but I noticed her eyes drifting toward the desk where I had intentionally left some folders. She thought I didn't know, but I was ready. These past few days managing the hotel must have been exhausting, right? I asked softly. Candace smiled. "A little busy, but I enjoy it. I want to help you more." I nodded, though inside I was frozen cold. Help. She only wanted to take everything. I pretended to get up to answer a call, leaving the door slightly ajar. Candace immediately moved to the desk, opened one of the folders, and snapped photos of every page quickly, skillfully, like someone who had done it many times before. The small camera Arlene had hidden on the shelf surely captured it all. I stood in the hallway, my heart pounding, torn between fury and fear. Candace was too bold, too confident, but that very confidence would be her downfall. Before leaving, she set the wine bottle on the table, flashing her perfect smile. "I hope I can soon share the family responsibilities with you." I nodded. "I hope so too, dear." But when the door closed, I dropped into the chair, my hands trembling. I had the proof. I had seen her in action, yet unease lingered inside me. Perhaps because my family, the people I loved most, was on the verge of breaking apart, and I was the only one who could stop it. The next morning I woke with a tightness in my chest. The Charleston sunlight filled my room, but it couldn't chase away the cold inside me. I stepped onto the porch and opened the mailbox as I always did. Inside was a plain white envelope. No sender, no address. My hands shook as I opened it. A small slip of paper read, "They're watching you." My heart pounded wildly, as if it would burst. Who had sent it? Candace? Vincent, or someone else I hadn't met yet? I looked around, feeling unseen eyes on me. I slipped the note into my pocket, deciding not to tell anyone. In my mind, I replayed the strokes of the handwriting, trying to remember if it matched anyone I had seen before. That afternoon, Arlene pulled me aside in a quiet corner of the hotel, her eyes full of worry as she handed me her phone. "Mom, watch this video." I stared at the screen. Candace sat at a desk, holding a pen identical to mine, carefully practicing the signature Donna Harris over and over on blank sheets of paper, repeating each stroke with precision like an artist. My blood turned to ice. She was preparing to forge my signature, to steal everything Samuel and I had built. "She really has no conscience left," I whispered, my voice trembling. Arlene squeezed my hand, her gaze unwavering. "Mom, we almost have all the evidence. She won't get away." Looking at my daughter, my heart ached. She was still so young. She should have been worrying about her studies, about falling in love, not dragged into this dangerous game. At that moment, my phone buzzed. It was Andrew, his voice uncertain. "Mom, do you really want to put the property in Candace's name?" She keeps insisting. Says it'll make management easier. But I think it feels rushed. His words pierced my chest. My son was still under Candace's sway, but this time I heard a faint note of doubt in his voice. "Why are you asking, son?" I tried to stay calm. Andrew replied, "Because Candace won't stop bringing it up. If you agree, she says we should do it soon. But I'm not sure." I took a deep breath. "Let me think it through, son. This can't be rushed. Leave it to me." I hung up, My heart weighed down with sorrow. Andrew had begun to doubt. But was he strong enough to face the truth about the wife he loved? That night, I asked him to meet me at a small cafe near the Charleston Pier. I told him to find a reason so Candace wouldn't know, afraid she would stop him. The cafe was quiet, only the two of us inside. The only sounds were the waves brushing against the shore and the faint smell of coffee in the air. Andrew walked in, wearing a simple shirt, but his face was tense, his eyes red as if he had been crying. I held his hand and whispered, "Andrew, I need to tell you something important." Then I showed him the evidence Arlene had gathered. Photos of Candace receiving an envelope from Vincent, a video of her photographing property documents, and even a recording of her conversation with Marissa before the wedding. I told him everything from the day I overheard Candace's plan to what Arlene had uncovered about her past in Dallas. Andrew sat in silence, clutching his phone, his face shifting from red to pale. His eyes grew moist as if he was fighting back tears. "No way," he muttered, his voice breaking. "Candace wouldn't do that, Mom. Are you sure?" I squeezed his hand, my own voice trembling. "I didn't want to believe it either, son, but I can't let her hurt you or this family." He bowed his head, silent for a long time before saying, "I need time to accept all this." Looking at him, I wanted nothing more than to hold him, but the truth was necessary, no matter how painful. Back home, my phone buzzed again. A message from Vincent. "She's worried because you haven't signed yet. She'll act soon." Reading it felt like stepping deeper into dangerous ground. Candace was growing impatient, and that could make her reckless. I texted back, "Keep the pressure on, but don't push too far." My hands shook as I set the phone down. Every step now felt like walking on thin ice. I thought about the note in my mailbox that morning, "They're watching you." Candace had begun to suspect me, or maybe someone else was hiding in the shadows. Monday morning, sunlight filtered into my office but couldn't chase away the chill inside me. Sitting at my desk, I carefully prepared a folder, forcing myself to appear calm. When Andrew and Candace walked in, I smiled and invited them to sit. "I have some papers for you to look over," I said, as if it were just another business discussion. I slid a limited authorization form toward Candace, explaining, "This only allows you to sign a few small hotel service contracts on my behalf. Think of it as practice for the job." Candace picked up the paper, skimmed a few lines, then smiled like she had struck gold. "Thank you, Mom," she purred and signed immediately without hesitation. I glanced at Andrew, who sat quietly, lost in thought. After what I had told him the day before, he still couldn't fully believe his wife was scheming. As soon as Candace signed, I caught her eyes flicking toward the locked cabinet in the corner of the room, the one holding the main family property documents. It was only a quick look, but enough for me to see the greed flashing in her eyes. She thought she had won, but in reality, she had just walked straight into my trap. I kept smiling, chatting casually before letting them leave. As soon as the door closed, I collapsed into my chair, my hands trembling. I was walking a tightrope, every step stretched thin. If Candace discovered I knew her plan, what would she do? I remembered her own words. "At worst, I'll just get rid of Andrew." My chest clenched. No, I would never let her touch my son. That afternoon, another message came from Vincent. "She hasn't paid her debt. I'll increase the pressure." My stomach twisted. He was keeping his word, but how could I fully trust a loan shark? I wrote back, "Do as we agreed, but don't go too far." Then I sat still, staring out the window, trying to breathe. Every move now felt like a game of cards I couldn't afford to lose. Later, I drove to the Central Market under the excuse of buying groceries, really just to ease the tension pressing on me. As soon as I parked, I saw Candace and Marissa sitting in a small cafe. Both looked tense. Suddenly, Vincent appeared. He walked straight to their table, his expression stern. I quickly found a seat 2 tables behind, hiding behind a column, pretending to read the menu. Vincent's voice carried, sharp and commanding. "I won't wait any longer, Candace. You know the deadline." Marissa stood and stepped outside to take a call, leaving Candace facing Vincent. I strained to listen and caught Candace's voice, still confident but tinged with worry. "Just a few more signatures and I'll have all the property. She already transferred part of it to my name. She's old, easy to fool." My fists clenched so tight my nails dug into my palms. Easy to fool. Did she really think I was that simple? Vincent left quickly, while Candace stayed behind, glued to her phone, her face tight with stress. I slipped out before she noticed, my heart racing. She believed she was about to win, but she was digging her own grave. That evening, as I prepared dinner, Andrew stepped into the kitchen, his voice hesitant. "Mom," Candace suggested, transferring some of the company's money. "She says it's a great investment opportunity, but I'm not sure." I set down what I was holding and looked at him. In his eyes, I saw the battle tearing him apart. I spoke gently. "Stay calm, son. Tomorrow I'll prepare the necessary papers. Let me handle this." He nodded, but the worry in his eyes remained. I wanted to hug him, to promise I'd protect him, but I knew it wasn't time to reveal everything. After dinner, Arlene slipped into my room and whispered, "Mom, I just installed another hidden camera in the office corner, along with an alert system connected to the safe. If Candace opens it, we'll know immediately." I squeezed her hand. "Good job, but be careful." "I don't want you in danger." Arlene smiled, but I saw the strain in her eyes. "Don't worry, Mom. We're close to catching her." I pulled her into my arms, torn between pride and sorrow. The next morning, I used the excuse of a reunion with old friends in Houston. The Charleston sky was clear, sunlight filtering through the trees, but my chest felt heavy as stone. I knew today would be the turning point, the day the trap closed. Before leaving, I texted Arlene, "Stay alert. If anything unusual happens, tell me right away." She replied briefly, "Don't worry, I'm ready." Near noon, my phone buzzed. A message from Arlene. "Mom, the safe alert just went off." My heart pounded as I opened the camera app. The live feed appeared Candace in a white blouse, standing before the safe. She opened it, pulling out the property folder and the fake authorization papers I had planted as bait. She sat at the desk, pen in hand, the same one she had practiced with signing Donna Harris on the papers, focused like a professional. My blood boiled. She truly believed she could take everything Samuel and I had built. Without pause, Candace picked up her phone and called the bank. "Hello, this is Candace, representing Mrs. Donna Harris. I need to transfer $120,000 from the company account to my personal account. The authorization is signed. I'll send it right now." Her voice was calm, confident, as if she had the world in her hands. I clenched my phone, swallowing my fury. This was it, the moment for her to fall. As soon as she hung up, the door burst open. The police team I had contacted beforehand rushed in. The lead officer, tall and commanding, spoke firmly. "Candace Torres, you are under arrest for abuse of trust and large-scale fraud." Candace jumped up, her face pale but trying to stay composed. "You're mistaken. This was an agreement approved by Mrs. Donna." "I have the authorization," she said shakily, pointing at the papers on the desk. The officer shook his head and produced a folder. "We have all the evidence video of you forging signatures, the recording of your conversation with Marissa before the wedding, and photos of you receiving an envelope from Vincent." I stepped into the room. When Candace's eyes met mine, I saw true panic in them for the first time. You knew all along," she stammered. I stared at her coldly. "Candace, did you think it would be that easy to fool me? I've been watching you since the day I heard your plan. You wanted to steal my family's wealth. You wanted to hurt my son. But you were wrong." Candace opened her mouth to protest, but the officer gestured, and the police escorted her out. They handcuffed her. Even so, she kept looking back at me, her eyes burning with rage and despair. Andrew had been standing silently in the corner the entire time. When Candace was taken away, my son turned to me, his eyes heavy with grief. "Mom, why would she do that?" His voice cracked like a child who had just lost something precious. I walked to him, took his hand. I didn't know what to say, so I just held him close, feeling every tremor in his body. "I'm sorry, Andrew. I only wanted to protect you." He didn't reply, just lowered his head. I knew his heart was breaking. At the station, Marissa and Lauren were called in. Under the weight of the evidence, both admitted Candace had promised them a share if the plan worked. Marissa, pale as paper, stammered, "We just followed Candace's lead. She said everything would be fine." Lauren lowered her eyes, unable to look at me. Vincent was also summoned. He admitted Candace had tricked him in a fake business deal tied to Samuel. "She's a professional," Vincent said bitterly. "I was a victim too." Hearing it sent a cold shiver down my spine. Candace hadn't just hurt my family, she had ruined many others. That night, Candace was transferred to the county jail to await trial. Sitting in the car, I looked out the window at the golden glow of the street stalls. The warmth of the lights couldn't ease the heaviness in my chest. Arlene sat beside me, holding my hand. "It's over now, Mom," she whispered. "You can finally be at peace." I nodded, but my heart still felt heavy. Peace? I wasn't sure. I had defeated Candace, but the price was Andrew's broken heart and the fracture within my own family. When I entered the hotel lobby, the soft notes of a guitar still played in the corner. The hotel Samuel and I had built still stood tall, but I knew the cracks in my family would take time to heal. I sank into the sofa, glancing around, searching for a sense of calm. But it didn't come. Only exhaustion, as if I had just walked out of a war. A few days later, just as I thought everything had settled, another white envelope appeared in my mailbox. No sender, no address. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside was a single scrawled line. "Candace didn't act alone. Someone else is still inside your house." I froze, my heart stopping. I looked around and thought of Samuel, the husband I once loved, who had hidden his debts from me. I thought of Andrew, my son, still drowning in betrayal. I thought of family dinners, of laughter that used to fill our home. And when it was quiet again, I realized one clear truth. Family isn't just where we're born. It's where we must learn to protect, to preserve, and sometimes to face painful truths. I once thought love alone could hold us together, but the truth is, love needs honesty and trust if it's going to last. Looking back, I see the pain Andrew is carrying is a heavy price for this lesson. But maybe, through those cracks, we will learn to rebuild slowly, with patience, and with the courage to face the truth. So I want to ask you, if you were in my place, what would you do? Stay silent for the sake of fragile peace, or face it all to protect what truly matters? Share your thoughts. because maybe your answer could be the light someone else needs. And if you'd like to walk with me through more stories of family, love, and the lessons we carry, stay close. Together, we won't just hear stories, we'll learn how to become stronger through them.